live stream started, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome to this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing Subcommittee of Birmingham City Council, and we're here to determine a premises licence grant application today for Anna Store, 868 Washwood Heath Road, Washwood Heath, Birmingham, B8 2NG. I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee A, and I have two colleagues with me, and I'll introduce them later on. Before we start, if everybody could mute their microphones for the moment, as this improves the sound quality while I talk about procedure. And again, if you could turn off your cameras, with the exception of committee members, as this will assist the broadband. Committee members will normally have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. If everybody could also make sure their mobile phones are off and you're situated somewhere with minimum distractions, that would assist the proceedings today. And it's obviously important that those attending the meeting making representations are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and officers. Any distractions could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. This is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. The formal agenda is 1, notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's YouTube meeting site, and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in the agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies and notification of nominee members, and no apologies were submitted. Minutes, to confirm the minutes as listed in the agenda. Those are confirmed, thank you. So can I welcome you to this hearing for the application in respect of Anna Store, 868 Washwood Heath Road, Birmingham, B8 2NG. As I said, I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'm chairing the meeting today. With me are the members of the subcommittee, Councillor Mary Locke and Councillor Simon Brown. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Mr. Pindanandra, the committee manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, the committee lawyer, Ms. Joanne Swampillai, and onto the parties. If I could just confirm the attendance of Mr. Patrick Burke, agent for the applicant today. Mr. Burke.
Morning, councillors.
Okay, thank you. And I understand your clients with you today. And next, those making representations, Mr. Hassan Ali.
Yeah, I'm present.
Okay. Now, I don't think Mr. Jawad Yakubu was listed as attending today. He's actually here. Mr. Yakubu? No. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so could I ask if any persons making representations, I think this is mostly direct to you, Mr. Ali, want to withdraw those representations at this stage? No, obviously nobody wishes to withdraw. So I'll assume all parties have read and understood the licensing committee procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearings. Please note that given the nature of today's hearings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact the meeting is taking place online. But I want to assure everyone that any such amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. As you know, we use a chat function in these procedures. For anybody new to the hearings, I think chat is pretty well understood, and you can access in the usual way through your computer, speech bubble, or however it appears on your particular system. We all use the chat facility. I'm going to ask you now to do this, to type in your name, as this will assist with the record of the attendance. So I'm going to chat, and well, if we can get into it, I'm putting my name there. So if you could all do the same, that will assist the procedure today. There we are. Okay, So thank you very much for that. Okay. So we keep the chat column open for the duration of the meeting as a means of additional communication, but you can speak by attracting my attention in the usual way. I don't think we've got anybody dialed in on audio telephone, so we don't have that complication. Okay, if everybody could keep their cameras off, as I indicated earlier, with the exception of subcommittee members, that will assist the bandwidth. And I may ask everyone to turn off their cameras at any stage if there is a problem with the bandwidth with the reception. Preliminary points. I think it's addressed to you, Mr. Burke. Do you wish to make any preliminary points, procedural points, or whatever at this stage? Mr. Burke?
No, fine, thank you.
Okay. And again, Mr. Ali, do you wish to make any preliminary points? It's usually about procedure around them, but we will, we come to, you'll see how the thing pans out later.
Oh, no, I've got no points to make, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, further points on procedure. Firstly, I'm going to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Nandra, to present his report. Then the applicant for the licence will be asked to present their case, and Mr. Burke will speak. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case. And we're asking everybody to keep their representations to around 20 minutes each. And if all parties can speak slowly and clearly as they possibly can, as officers are taking notes for the minutes, and the meeting is being live streamed on the City Council website, as you know. And again, if it's time for somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone, as this avoids distractions. Members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. We don't generally allow cross-examination. And again, if you want to raise a point, signify in the usual way verbally, but you can also use the chat function. And if at any point you lose communication, again, try and use the chat function to let the officers know, and they'll alert me to this fact, and we'll stop the proceedings to make sure everyone, again, is able to join in with the hearing. Occasionally, it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting, this meeting, while members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate Teams meeting. We'll then return to the meeting and continue. At that point, the live stream being broadcast on the City website will be suspended. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I'll ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If we go into private session, as I've indicated, the manager will pause the live stream, and then we'll return to the public hearing. The live stream will recommence. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission of about 5 minutes. No decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make the decision, and you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. I hope that's reasonably clear. So with that, I'd like to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Nandra, to present his report. Mr. Nandra.
Thank you, Chair. Sujitha Piraparan applied on the 10th of June 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Anna Store, 868 Washwood Heath Road, Washwood Heath, Birmingham, B82NG. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises to operate from 8 AM until 10 PM Monday to Sunday. The premises is to remain open to the public from 8 AM until 10 PM Monday to Sunday. Representations have been received from other persons which are attached at Appendices 1 to 14. The application is attached at Appendix 15 and the site location plans are attached at Appendix 16. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the license in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the license subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the license any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, or to refuse to specify a person in the license as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nandra. So now to you, Mr. Burke. Would you like to make your presentation, please, in favour of the grant of the licence?
Thank you, councillors. I'll just give you a little bit of background into both the premises and the applicant. The premises was formally licensed. The previous premises licence holder surrendered the licence 29th of March this year. My client and her family have run many similar businesses throughout Birmingham and the West Midlands without issue for many years, and have never had any issues with any of their previous businesses. For the benefit of the objectors, when an application is submitted, a copy of the application goes to the police, trading standards, the fire service, the EHO, a body that's concerned with the welfare of children, planning, and the Home Office and the Health Service all get copies of the application. The police actually contact the local community support police officers and ask for feedback. No concerns from any of the responsibilities have been raised with regards to this application. So we've had no objections at all from the police or any of the responsible authorities. The objection number 1 refers to the risk of antisocial behaviour and public health and safety. My client and her family have had no issues with any of the other premises that they currently run or have run in the past. Objection number 2 states correctly that the premises was previously licensed. And also states that under covert operations by the police and trading standards were found to be in breach of their licensing conditions, and that the issues were serious enough for the licence to be taken away. The licence was actually surrendered by the previous licence holder. I can give you a little bit of background into what actually happened there. Although I didn't deal with the premises licence application initially, when it was first granted, I did deal with the previous premises licence holder, because he actually came to me about 3 weeks after his premises licence has been granted for his personal licence training. And the process for the personal licence, once they've been on the training course, on average, it takes between 6 and 8 weeks to get the personal licence, which I explained to him fully on the day that he came for his training. However, I think he decided that once he'd done the training, he could go back and open his shop. So he was actually trading for a short while without a premises licence, and in that time got caught on a test purchase, right? And on the advice of the licensing consultant that he used to submit the initial application, he surrendered the licence. These are the actions of a poor operator, not of the premises or the area. This is just a poor operator who decides to go off on a whim and do what he thinks is okay to do. Right. Objection number 3 states the petition is signed by local residents. The petition that I've seen that we had sent over to us doesn't show that show what they've signed for on the petition, or in fact, and there's only about 10 that have actually put their addresses down. States that the area is already renowned for antisocial behaviour, drug use, drug dealing, open drug use, heroin needles, crack pipes littered casually, prostitution, alcohol bottles littered everywhere, and late night street parties, which are an ongoing issue. These are all issues that either go on or have gone on for many years, with or without a premises licence being granted on this premises, and they're all issues that are either generated by or facilitated by the local residents themselves and by the local community. My client cannot be blamed for any of the stuff that has gone on previously with regards to these issues. With regard to the planning query, 868 to 870 used to be a bank, and in 2018 someone applied for change of use for a restaurant. This development never went ahead. There's numerous newspaper clippings. There's a picture of AK Supermarket stating it lost its licence. The licence was actually surrendered. The reference to the Fox and Goose being closed down by the police, again, incorrect. The licence there was surrendered by the previous people. However, we actually got a licence granted on that premises around the same time that this licence was granted. There's not been any issues there because those people are decent operators, the same as my clients are today. Similar to when we had the hearing for the Fox and Goose, I can say I've known these people for 17 years. I've never had any issues with regards to them, with regards to failing test purchases, underage sales, or anything like that in the length of time that I've known them. Right, and that was similar to the Fox and Goose. When you've got decent people operating your premises, you won't have these issues. States, my client will argue that she has no links to the previous premises licence, and that it would be unfair to say the premises will be operating the same way, and refers to the objection raised with the previous application. It's correct that my client has no connection whatsoever to the previous operator. And I'll point out again that there are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. Again, refers to antisocial behaviour, stating all aspects of antisocial behaviour are defined in the Home Office, as defined in the Home Office, are present outside 868 Washwood Heath Road and the surrounding area. There are no objections from any of the responsible authorities with regards to this application. Talks about prostitution and drug dealing, there's no objections. Noise and nuisance, talks about late night parties, shows various pictures and states these scenes have been the same day and night in the area for many years. This shop was this premises, or half of this premises, was a bank until 2018. So if these issues have gone on for many years, it's got nothing to do with what's going on in this area today. This is an ongoing thing that the community need to deal with. States that there have been several occasions in the last year alone where groups hang around 868 and let residents' tyres down for their own amusement. The previous premises licence was issued in November and surrendered in March, so they only operated for 4 months. States to show a photo of gangs of men who brought alcohol from the previous operator and were drinking and set fire to the rear of the bookmakers. This has nothing to do with the current application, and there are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. There's various photos of the surrounding area showing rubbish and various things. Nothing to do with this application. Objection 4 states a child was seen asking customers of the gambling shop next door to purchase tobacco products. My client took possession of the premises on the 29th of June. So anything that has gone on prior to that, 29th of July. So anything that has gone on, so that they took the premises over about a week ago and actually closed it down straight away to do a refit on it. So anything that has gone on prior to the 29th of July has nothing whatsoever to do with my clients. Objection 5 states this will only invite crime and spread antisocial behaviour. Again, no objections from the responsible authorities. Objection 6 states the licence was revoked due to illegal activity. The licence was surrendered and there was a poor operator. My client has a proven track record of running these types of premises with no issues. 7, objection 7 again refers to previous issues, nothing to do with this applicant. Objection 8 again refers to previous or current issues, nothing to do with this applicant. Objection 9 refers to Ward End being a deprived inner city area. Unless good operators are allowed to take over these premises, to take over premises and run them properly, the area will always be deprived, and everybody will blame it on what's going on the high street. But unless they have decent operators in there who are prepared to spend money and upgrade the facilities that are there, it will always be deprived. Objection 10 is the same as 8, and 11 is the same, as the same as 9, and 11 is the same as 9. Objection 12 expresses concerns of antisocial behaviour and states there will be a minimum, states there will at a minimum be empty cans and bottles on the floor outside our entrance. This is a shop where customers will purchase goods, not just alcohol, but other goods, tins of beans, pasta, all the rest of it, to take home and consume at home. Objection 13 refers to being told by the new management that the rubbish at the back of the shop would be cleared when the licence was granted. My client took over the shop just last week and has closed for a refit. So whoever this person spoke to, it wasn't new management. And the back of that, the back area of the shop that he was referring to has been cleared of all rubbish that was left by the previous owner, previous management. 14 refers to the hours being 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. daily. That isn't our application. Our application is 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. talks about the number of off licenses in the premises, in the area, sorry, which is not relevant to this application. Talks about gang activity and domestic violence. There are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. And what my client would be happy to put into this, to add to this application, is that any staff that were previously employed by previous management at this premises will not have anything to do or not be employed in the premises moving forward. I think that's all I've got to say for now, but I will sum up at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Burke. So, colleagues, Councillor Morrell, have you any questions?
Yes, Chair, and thank you for that, Patrick. My first question would be, you've basically just gone through all the objections, haven't you, and rebutted them. And you keep referring to a good operator obviously wouldn't encourage or facilitate the problems that they have in the local area, and you've tried to separate them. There is an argument that actually we don't want to encourage more of this by selling it. So I suppose my question would be, can you define what a good operator would be? What does that look like? And what reassurances would you give us as a committee that your operator will do everything they can to prevent antisocial behaviour in the area? Well, as a result of your licensing activities.
A good operator would be somebody who's got a proven track record of running businesses like this in similar areas to this without issue, and somebody who adheres to the licensing objectives. You know, that to me is a good operator, somebody who, you know, makes sure the staff are trained, which is what they do. They make sure that all of everything is in place that needs to be in place in terms of refusals books, challenge 25, all the rest of it. It's all there, or it all will be there. These people have had shops for many, many years as a family. They've not had any. I've known them for 17 years, right? I've not had any issues, anybody from any of their shops contacting me and saying, we failed a test purchase. We've done this. That to me is a good operator. Somebody who has a proven track record.
Thank you, Chair. No further questions.
Okay, Councillor Locke.
Yeah, going on from what Councillor Morrell said, how, if granted, how would the applicant work with the local community? You know,
they are always happy to work with the local community, with the residents and the neighbours. They'll be quite happy to give out mobile phone numbers if any of the local residents have any issues. They don't have issues in their shops, and it's similar to the shop across the road, the Fox and Goose. Those people I've personally known for probably the same length of time. And I know that as operators, they will do all the right things. They will tick all the boxes. They will make sure that the staff are trained. They will make sure that if people have issues, they're approachable. They can come to them and they can say, "Well, we've got an issue with this." They don't fail test purchases. They don't do. It just hasn't happened for them.
Can I just ask another question then about staff training? Will it be how often will it be, and will it be updated?
Within the application, I think we've stated within the application that staff training will be updated every 6 months for people, for any members of staff that haven't got a personal licence.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you for that. So, Mr. Burke, how many members of staff will there be? What sort of operating model will there be?
At least 2. At least 3. There'll be at least 3 members on duty all the time. How many will you have on duty? There'll be 2 people on duty all the time. And there'll be 3 people, including themselves, on a rota basis. So there'll be at least 2 people in the premises at any time, or 2 members of staff in the premises at any time.
And do you know whether the licensee intends to be the DPS if this is approved, or?
Yes, we've you know, as part of the application, we've named her as the DPS.
Okay, thank you for those answers. And as you say, you have a chance to sum up at the end. Thank you for that. Okay, I'd like to move on to Mr. Hassan Ali. Mr. Ali, you've got 20 minutes to address the committee about your views on the license application.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll be giving you the subjective and arbitrary view of local residents who have raised their concerns about this license application, and of course including myself, who lives less than 50 yards away from the proposed location. So first of all, as far as I'm aware, I'm of the understanding that the new management of the premises has already been operating the business for a couple of weeks now. So they have been given ample time to demonstrate that they are a responsible, community-orientated, trustworthy business who has the interests of the community at heart rather than just profit-making from selling alcoholic beverages. However, what they've demonstrated to us is that they are completely incompetent. The first issue I want to raise is that there is a huge amount of rubbish piled up in the rear of their premises, and that is there today because I've sent people to have a look and it's still there. And unfortunately, the Mr. Burke has claimed that the rubbish is not there anymore. That is simply incorrect. It's still there. He also claims that the business has been refitted on the 29th, and I can confirm that there is still building materials, including nails, pieces of wood, waste surrounding the entire business, which has not yet been cleared up, even though that these new applicants are operating the business. He also mentioned that the application was surrendered, which is factually correct. Yet, a few weeks later, I understand that the application was in fact revoked after being surrendered. So them surrendering it doesn't really make a difference upon the fact that they broke their licensing conditions and had to have the application revoked and removed. He claims that the issues surrounding antisocial behavior in the community are an ongoing matter. I completely agree. It is an ongoing matter, but the selling of alcoholic beverages and drinks will only exacerbate the issues that are taking place within the community, namely all of the antisocial behavior. And the fact that he clearly acknowledges the issues in the area demonstrates that he understands that this is something that blights the community, not only on the weekends, but on a daily basis. I mean, I was on the media recently highlighting how gangs of men are gathering here, right outside the shop even. They're drinking late into the evening. They're singing and dancing. And this is not just happening up until 11, 12 p.m. This is going on up until the early hours of the morning. People have work, college, school to go to. And many residents have approached me and told me that they simply cannot even get to sleep in the evening. And that is going to be a direct result of selling these alcoholic drinks at this new business. My next point is that he makes a hugely insensitive point, stating that the community need to deal with it. Well, I can confirm that the community has been trying to deal with it. They've contacted the local council. They're working closely with the local police force, the local authorities, all of the institutions that take an active part in protecting the community have been approached. But that comment itself, I believe, is completely insensitive, and it shows a clear lack of compassion for the local community who want to ensure that there is no antisocial behavior in the community. But clearly, local businesses are not getting on board and assisting. Also, my next point is that he claims that his businesses that they've been operating, namely the Anna store. We know there's one located in Erdington, and people from that business have contacted me and told me that they are in the process of making complaints to the licensing committee as well. So it's not a fact that these individuals are upstanding, righteous business owners who have constantly been running business according to the book. And more so from a subjective point of view, I mean, the quality of life of local residents is really bad. Like I mentioned previously, the antisocial behavior, but more so the impact on businesses, especially newly established ones that on the Washwood Heath Road are finding it very difficult to operate because of the groups of individuals that are being attracted into the area because of the sale of alcohol. And this is something that only needs to be witnessed if an individual passes the road on a daily basis. Like I said, up to 50 people standing outside on the main shopping district, and they are very intimidating and turning away local residents who come out to shop, namely the elderly, young people, and also families. We also know that that same strip of road, the Washwood Heath Road, is notorious for a number of deaths that have taken place due to speeding. And we know that these individuals, they drink alcohol, they are intoxicated, they're drunk, they enter into their vehicles, they're speeding up and down the road. Unfortunately, in the last few years alone, there's been countless fatalities in the area because of the speeding on that road. And this is once again only going to add on to that. That the premises itself was a bank, and this is more of a point regarding a procedural point. It was a bank, and that they sought planning permission for a double-fronted unit. They subdivided and created a retail shop and a takeaway, but this is contrary to the planning permission that was granted.
We don't deal with planning issues here, Mr. Ali. You may or may not have a valid point, but you'd have to report that to the planning department, not to us.
Okay, I'll move on. Yes, and my closing point would be, would you also consider the fact that the transportation department has not been consulted as well? That's another issue, of course, that was brought to the fore. The other issue that was also raised was by, I don't know if you'd consider this and take this into account, was by default that the individuals who do not respond to being contacted by the licensing department are by default not an objection, which to me seems quite strange. And the community having to chase up these individuals for a response seems completely unfair and uncalled for. And that's why we find it so difficult to get adequate responses against this planning application.
If I can help you, we get all the documentation which has been submitted. We've seen the petition, we've seen the numerous submissions and photographs. We have all those in the information pack, which you should have had access to as well. So we have had we have had all the representations made, and we obviously consider those in the context of the licensing application today. But we can only consider those matters referring to the 4 licensing objectives. We can't consider planning matters, and of course general antisocial behaviour matters as well. But anyway, I just want to reassure you that we have seen the information that has been submitted by residents.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. My final contention would be that for some strange reason that the council actually encouraged us to contact the license applicant directly. But we know from personal experience that after, I'll give you an example, we were on the media, that the individual arrived straight to the property and was very intimidating and very violent. So I don't think it should be a burden upon local community members to have to directly liaise with the individual who is applying for the license, which is what we were told by the council. So that's my final contention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Councillor Locke, have you any questions?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Morrell?
No questions, Chair.
Okay. I think I've raised the points I wanted to raise, Mr. Ali. Thank you very much for that submission. You get the chance to sum up at the end, but it is just summing up. There's no new information at the end for about 5 minutes. And in fact, that's where we are now. Would you like to sum up your arguments against the licensing application?
Yeah, well, in conclusion, I would say what the committee should really consider is the impact upon local people. I mean, of course, the individual applying for the license, it's a profit-making business, and we would, of course, rationally only be interested in making that profit. But the fact is that across the area, we don't need another business selling alcoholic beverages. We've got a Tesco, we've got an Aldi, we've got a petrol station, we've got 2 pubs less than, I believe, 30 yards away from the business that wants to sell alcohol. There's already myriad plethora opportunities to buy alcohol if individuals want it. It's not like the community is being deprived of the right to buy alcohol. But the impact, the negative impact on the community is detrimental. And as I mentioned previously, this is something that really needs to be considered, especially when considering we're in the top 10 areas that are in the indices of deprivation, according to the government's official statistics. And these sorts of businesses that are not being effectively run, as has been demonstrated by the individual running the business currently. I'm not talking about what's gone on previously, and I understand that the new business applicant should not be blamed for what has happened previously, but we know that the behaviors the selling of alcohol itself attracts are a cause for concern for local people, and I think these should be seriously considered when making any decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's your submission then. Mr. Burke, you're summing up.
Thank you. First of all, I want to point out that the back of my client's shop is clear of any rubbish, and I have actually sent over photos showing that it's clear of any rubbish. The rubbish that is described by the objector is actually for the food shop next door, nothing whatsoever to do with my client. Okay, it's not the back area of his premises is clear. There's been no complaints whatsoever with regards to Anna's store in Erdington, which is another one of their premises. None whatsoever. Okay. The planning are a responsible authority, so if they had any issues with regards to this application, they would have raised those issues if it was against their planning. And a couple of other things I'd like to impress on you again is that my client has a wealth of experience within this business without issues. They haven't had any issues. There are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. And what I'd also say is that sometimes within an area, people need to be a bit careful as to what they wish for. Years ago, one of the first hearings that I went to was actually as a pub company area manager. I was in 2005, and it was an objection by local residents to a pub operator wanting to extend their hours at the weekend till 1 o'clock and do some entertainment in there. The application was refused by Newcastle Underline Licensing Authority, and then about 18 months later, I got a call from the council within that area. The pub company that I work for had actually sold the pub because it wasn't a viable business. It could only open from 8 till 11 and could only sell beer. They couldn't do any entertainment in there. This was before the changes in the Live Music Act and stuff like this. So they sold it. It went to another couple of pub companies who tried to do something with it. And then
what's the relevance of this?
Well, just that what happened with this, I had complained. Somebody from the council contact me to try and find out who actually owned it at that about 18 months later, because what had happened, because it wasn't a viable business.
Well, can you just sum up on the current application, because I don't think this is helping.
This premises was being used by drug dealers and drug users, and the residents were then complaining about the drug dealing and people breaking in and squatting in the building. But that happened because they wouldn't accept somebody doing a bit of music in the pub. It was just not a viable business. So you have to be very, very careful as to what you wish for. These are decent operators. They won't create any issues. They haven't created any issues in the 17 years that I've known them. So, you know, they're being very brave, taking on a new business in today's climate, where 9 times out of 10, the gas and electric bills are higher than the rent and the business rates. You know, they might find that if this fails as a business, the shops close down, and then they could have all similar issues to all of that. So that's all I'm saying, is that, you know, my clients have got a proven track record of being decent operators, decent people, and they're quite happy for anybody to contact them at any time if they've got any issues ongoing. And that's all I'll have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Mr. Burke, for your help today, and also Mr. Ali, obviously, for your presentations. I'll now ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Thank you very much for your attendance today. That is the end of the public hearing. As I say, we'll now go over into the private session. Colleagues,